Good morning. It's good to see everybody here this morning. We have kind of something that's a little different than usual. Different is good. We wanted to face you all backwards and inside out, but we decided to just go with what we usually do. So, actually, I thank you to whoever was involved getting the projector on. That made things easier this morning. So, this morning, I'm not going to take more than just a minute to introduce Glenn Hinton and his wife, Kathy, my aunt and uncle. They are here. Uncle Glenn's going to give a presentation on the Nicaragua Christian School. And I just want to say a couple things briefly. When I think of a life spent in service to God, my Uncle Glenn and Aunt Kathy are two of the first people that come to my mind. They've spent a lot of years in missions, in particular, 15 years combined in Argentina. Um, um, Several years altogether spent teaching at Freed Hardeman University, and in my Aunt Kathy's case, Jackson Christian School. Um, and of course, many years preaching and teaching the word in other places. But currently, they are involved with the Nicaragua Christian School. And he probably wouldn't like me telling this because I guess it sounds more important than it is, according to him. But he is the president of the Nicaragua Christian School, which he'll be talking about for us this morning. So without further ado, Glenn Hinton.
Thank you, David. You got converted to my favorite nephew. But don't tell Caleb that, okay? Yeah. It is a pleasure to be here with you today and to be here with family. Even my sister and her husband drove over. I am not so gullible as to think they came to see me because they have grandchildren and other things that are going on here. But we're grateful for them as well and get to share some time with you, and that's so meaningful to us. I want to say thank you to the eldership for allowing us to come and make a presentation. And right now, all we're really doing is informing you and sharing with you a ministry opportunity and something that goes on. But I think, secondly, what I really want to say, there are so many good works that good people are doing throughout the world. And this is just one of them. And so every church, every individual has to make a decision regarding what they need to do, what they want to do, what they feel like the Lord is saying to them to do. So we're just taking the pressure off. I'm just sharing with you another opportunity to do some things. And if you or the church at some future point wants to be involved with that, that's great. But there are things that I know that you're already doing. So that's good. And so we're thankful for that. We're thankful for a congregation that continues to be faithful. In December of 2022, I was sitting calmly at my kitchen table with there was a brother from Nicaragua who was visiting with us, and also an elder of the congregation where we attend and work at Campbell Street in Jackson, Tennessee, that was sitting there at the table, and they were talking about Nicaragua and the work. And James and his wife Kim had actually lived in Nicaragua here, and I'm going to explain all of this about the school and all that. But they had lived there for 2 years, trying to help out with that work previously. And what was going on was that the founder and president, actual president, was getting on in years and having some health difficulties, and they needed to find somebody. So James is talking about this. We need to find somebody else and all of that. And all of a sudden, he looked at me and he said, "How about you doing that?" And I said, "You mean me?" Yeah, I said that we need to get somebody else in there. And I said, "Well, I thought you wanted somebody young." And I said, "I'm 70 years old at that time. I'm now 71, if anybody's counting." But anyway, and I said, "Yeah, but that's not very much younger." And he said, "No, no, no, but this is different. This is different." So anyway, the only thing we knew at the time was to say, "Well, we don't know. I mean, what do you do when maybe the Lord hands you something and says, 'Do this,' or at least the opportunity? What do you do?" You just sit back and go, "Nah, I ain't doing that." Well, no, we just said, "Well, we don't know. We'll put it in prayer, go the next step, and kind of see." And it turns out that it seems like it was a good fit for the time, and we're trying to do that now. So as David said, I have been named president of Nicaragua Christian School. It's a nice title. Sounds like there's a lot of authority with it, but actually, we're just communicators and we're just go betweens and all that. And I'll explain a little bit more about this. I want to share with you here briefly just a little bit of background about Nicaragua Christian School, what it means. And I do also want to say this is much more than just about educating in a secular sense. And we're going to share some of that as we go through. So now I do this and I just slide it this way. Maybe that'll work. I think I did too many. Let me back up. Yeah, let's do this one. All right. I was just talking now about the founder and president, or the past president and the founder of this. David and Brenda McCrary are members at the Camel Street Church, where again we work and have been worshiping now for the last 6 years. David and Brenda went on some medical mission campaigns to Nicaragua, dating as far back as 1997. When they were there in 2002, Brenda looked around at this particular area in Leon, Nicaragua, and she said, "What are all these kids just doing out in the street? What's the deal with all of that?" Well, somebody who knew what was going on said, "Well, what is that these children, this is a very poor area, as they'd already noted, and they said these children can't afford to go to school." And Brenda said out loud, "Well, maybe we need to do something about that." And so she started and talked to David, her husband. And David and Brenda both will tell you that the developments over the next a few years are the work of God. They're not their work. In fact, David will tell you quickly. He said, "You know, it sounded kind of funny that I would be founding a Christian school when I only finished the 10th grade." And so he said that's a little irony there. And there's a lot of things that God does and says, "It don't matter. I can still use you if you're willing." And I think that's the point. One of the things I want to say to each of y'all today is, don't think that because you're too old or this or that, that the Lord can't use you. Sometimes He's talking to you, He's giving you opportunities, and all you have to say is, "Lord, I don't know how this can happen, but let's do it." So that's what they did. And they began this dream in 2002 and continued to work on it. And I just want to share with you some of the little benchmarks. As I already said, these pictures here that you see on the right side of the screen are taken in that area just to give you an idea of the poverty. Now, these pictures were actually taken last July, so you can think back 2002 when they were first there, that things have definitely improved and things are a little different. So pretty quickly, the goal that Brenda and David had in their minds would be provide a Christ-centered education of the highest quality that could be made available at no cost to these students in this area. So that was the goal. So some of the other historical things that occurred with this is that there was property that was purchased in 2006. That in itself is an interesting story because the property actually belonged to the municipality of Leon. And so they went to try to say, "Can we buy this property?" They said, "Oh no, this is municipality property. We can't sell it. It's against the law." And they kept insisting, "No, no, no, we can't sell it." So David went away, came back a few days later and said, "Well, wait a minute. So you can't sell it to us. How about you donate it to us and we donate $20,000 to the city?" "Oh, yes, yeah, we can do that." All right, we don't want to ask any questions about all of that or not, but they said yes, and so they were able to do that and get the initial property for it. So that was good. 2007 actually began the school with 3 preschool classes, which means 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and 5-year-olds. Not these particular children. We're still looking for a picture of that group from 2007, which we can't seem to find. But this is a picture of what was the school group starting in last year, the beginning of 2023, of those that were in the preschool classes. So it started with 103 students at that particular time. Now, and so in 2007, beginning then, as they'd already done the preschool, the plan was to add a grade of school each year until they got through high school. Just a bit of a note there. They're graduating high school, and they graduate from high school in the 11th grade. After the 11th grade, they don't go through 12. I don't know why. That's just what they choose to do, and that's the way they do it. Now, at the time that they were starting to add in other schools, the national government said no more schools are going to be opening for whatever reason. And David went to the mayor there of the area and said, "Can't we start now and add for first grade like we planned?" And she said, "No, we can't do that. That can't be done because the government has said no, and we can't allow it." He said, "Yeah, but we technically have already started. Yeah, but no, and this and that." So finally, they just, he kept insisting, but it didn't work. And finally, he said, "Look, will you do this? Will you just come visit us? And if you come visit us, after that, tell us what your decision is." So the case was what? She went to visit. She came back. She said, "Okay, let's do it." So the government didn't want it. God did, apparently. And so, in spite of what was against it at the moment, that's what happened. And so, this was important to do. And they had a director chosen at that time. She served until we came across, and then here Marta Sandra Salina Mendoza, or we just call her Hermana Sandra. She became the director. Here she is pictured with her two children. I will mention really quickly that her husband was a medical doctor. He was also working as a minister for the church there that meets on the school grounds. I'll tell you more about that in just a couple of minutes. But back during the height of COVID, he contracted COVID and passed away. And so she has continued, and she has these two teenage children. Oda, the girl, she just graduated from high school this past December. And so she's planning on continuing her university studies. And Diego, the son, is going to school there. But this is Sandra. She does a lot of hard work, and we don't have time this morning to even talk about. Nicaragua is a difficult government right now. If you've done any research, you kind of know some things going on. 2018, there was an attempted rebellion to throw off the government, which then placed anybody and everything, all suspect, all nonprofits became suspect because of money laundering that was actually going on. So we've had certain pressures on the school about all of that, trying to keep it all in the up and up. This is just a picture of a classroom of kids, not so much different perhaps than classrooms today. Again, nothing real fancy about it. It's not filled with technology. It's got a fan that runs occasionally. And if you don't know anything about the weather in Nicaragua, there's a season where it's hot, and then there's a season where it's hotter. And that's just about all we can do to describe the climate there. But they go to school, the school year runs from about the 1st of February to the end of November, or is their school year, and then they have December and January basically off. Now, in 2018, finally, after government's approval, we kept adding grades. 2018, you can see a picture of the first graduating high school class from Nicaragua Christian School. How am I doing on time, my dear? She's checking for me. I have 9 minutes. Okay, I got 14 more minutes. Okay, good. So we're doing good. So this is the graduating class there. A total of 41 ultimately graduated. A good number of there. And then we're going to show you the other years, but it's a similar picture. This was from this last graduating class on December 2nd of this past year. And there were actually 32 that graduated from high school. And they go into a lot of processes. We were there during the graduation and promotion. I think I counted that I spoke on 15 different occasions. That's sort of the nice thing about being able to speak Spanish, and maybe not the nice thing so much of the time, but we were able to share there, and it's really great. So, as of today, just want to share with you some points about this. Um, this year, and this is an actual up to date figure, there are 563 students from preschool one, which is age 3, all the way through high school. Every one of these students is sponsored and provided for with a contribution of $40 a month, which covers generally the cost for them going to school there. There presently, we also developed after the 2018 graduation a program for helping those students to go on to the university. Again, these university cost there isn't nearly as much. They stay at home and they attend local universities. And so we actually have 66 on scholarship. That's $125 a month. And it just covers some travel costs and some other incidentals that they have with the university. But we have 66 of those. And I think this past year, I think we had 8 that actually graduated from their studies on the university level. Again, just trying to help out, which again is part of the secular thing that we've been talking about. So there are 14 classrooms there, chemistry lab, a computer lab, a library. There are 40 faculty and staff, and I'll show you a picture of them in just a minute. But I want to say this. They're all Nicaraguans, every one of them. And there's a certain a point to all of that. This is not about U.S. people being present. Probably wouldn't be, they would, not be very welcome there because of the political situation anyway. But from the very beginning, this has been run according to the education system in Nicaragua by Nicaraguans who are qualified to teach and administer the school. We feel like that is an extremely important point. Along with that, um, so we have 3 graduates of the Nicaragua Christian School that have finished their university studies and now are back teaching at the school. So we think that's a major accomplishment, and we got to meet them just recently. We just returned from Nicaragua this past Tuesday from a visit there after trying to be there for the school starting. And so we just got back from that. So I talked about the teachers and administrators, and except for the 2 gringos sitting in the middle of there, this is the faculty and staff as they existed in mid-year last year. So there have been some changes, but just to show you, these folks are very dedicated. They're Christ believing people, and they care about the kids, and this comes out all the time. I would also want to mention to you that even the parents in the area that come to what would be equivalent to a PTA meeting, and you can see here there are over 500 in attendance at the PTA meeting. You've been able to accomplish that lately in your PTA meetings? Where you get that many coming. Again, sometimes it's both parents, but usually there's at least one of the parents there, and they take interest. They are very thankful. In fact, I could tell you other stories every year at the end of the year, there's a big cleanup that is directed by the parent teacher organization. And there are, a couple hundred people that come in and clean up. These are all volunteers, clean up, paint, fix up, and that kind of thing. So that's good. Now, if we can, I don't know that, nah, this, let me back up a minute. Maybe it's here. Anyway, there's supposed to be a video there. This is just a picture of a morning devotional, and they're singing and they're holding hands. You can see that, but that's not going to work right now. But anyway, you can just imagine these 560 some odd kids singing praises to God as they gather at 7 a.m. to start their day. And it's a very impressive kind of thing. Again, I think that's a repeat, but I don't think that's going to happen. Anyway, I now want to go to the second part, which I say it's not just the secular that's important here, but obviously it's about sharing Jesus and what has happened. Presently, on the campus of the school, there is a church that was born there because of the outreach of the school, because of the teaching and that kind of thing. So presently, there's a congregation of about 150 members, and they have 3 elders and 2 ministers. And the reason I bring that up, in Latin America, Kathy and I have had, 40 plus years of ministry in Latin America, and to find churches where there are actually elders named, it's a hard thing. It's not very often that occurs. And there's all sorts of reasons and excuses that I could give you for why that hasn't happened more. But this is amazing to take a church that's only existed since 2007, and they have 3 men and their families who serve as elders, and it's just a great thing. Um, so during the last 10 years, there have been around 150 people from the community baptized, just like here in the case of Jose Calderon, who's a parent of one of the children. And we just got some pictures here that show that. In fact, we were just there last week. They had their opening of school campaign in the evenings. And during that 3-night campaign, there were 6 people baptized into Christ, all 6 students at the school. Their parents were already members who would not be members had the school not been there. Had Jesus not been in the school, I need to say, and been being taught there. And that's so important. Another thing that happens in terms of outreach to the community, each year, usually about the last Saturday of June, there is an outreach to the mothers, particularly of the students, where they're invited to come in and come there for Ladies' Day, a ladies' conference. It's all about teaching. Kathy spoke at the one last year. I think you're on slate to do it again this year. And anyway, at that particular meeting, 543 ladies 40% of which were non Christians from the community. I'd call that a pretty good evangelistic campaign, wouldn't you? And actually, two ladies were baptized that day because of the message and because of that. So, you see, what I'm trying to say here is that there is an outreach. It's having an impact of Christ. It's educating for Jesus, and that's so important. We were also there in July. A couple of congregations in Middle Tennessee went there and conducted a vacation Bible school. By the way, you know what the Nicaraguans call vacation Bible school in Spanish? VBS. That still is a hard one to get out, but okay. If you know what it means, we're good. Final day, we had 406. You ready for a VBS with 406 from preschool on up through high school? That's a lot of kids. Most of these are right there from the community. Good many of them still are just, they're just on the outskirts. I will also say that every Friday afternoon, the ministers, particularly Kevin and Denmark, and some of the other brothers, conduct a youth meeting for the area. And again, many of these are not Christians. But basically around 120, 100, 120 attend that on Friday afternoons. What am I saying here? The impact for Christ on the community is tremendous, and it's really positive. And for that, we are very thankful. I just wanted to mention some of the financial needs. You can review these and think about them. We've tried to be specific here. Obviously, part of what we're doing is getting the word out. So, in case there are some who might like to participate, you can see here that the sponsorship of a child in the preschool through high school is about $40 a month. I have 5 minutes left. I'm doing well. We have right now, the Lord would be thanked, we only have 7 students who are not fully sponsored at this point for this year. In fact, we had a guy from a brother in the church in central to Tennessee who sent a check recently, and the lady who takes control of that, she was looking at, she could say, well, wait, does it say he wants to sponsor 13 or 73? And she said, well, no, 73 is crazy. 13 is pretty crazy. But finally, when they confirmed it, the check was for over $35,000. And he said, I want to sponsor 73 children for 1 year. So that's just to say the Lord works in great ways. But some other things that are going on, computer room, you got to keep it at right kind of temperature. It's very hot there. So we need an air conditioner in there to keep the computers operating. We need to replace the one that's there. It's just not doing enough. So $2,500 for that. There's a new pickup. We have one that's, probably about 25 years old and kind of crippling around, but we need to replace that. We do have some already money raised for that. Things like renting a copier for the office. We have a copier, but it's kind of crippling along too. We need to rent a better one, so there's that expense. We also have some students still on the college level, the university level, who need sponsorships. We have 65 computers that we're working right now to get into Nicaragua to put in the computer lab to update for their teaching. But we need to buy, they're just separate CPU units. And so now we need to get the monitors for those. And those costs, we can get those for about $100 each. Then we got some shipment. If we can get the government to approve this is a whole nother operation. I won't bore you with all the details. We're trying to get permission to have those shipped in and to be received. And if that goes, then we can ship the monitors with that. If not, we'll have to figure out what the next thing is. So that's estimated maybe to be around $5,000. These are just some of the ideas of things that it goes to, besides the general operating expenses that maintenance and upkeep and painting and teacher salaries and those kinds of things as well are part of it. And they are paying us to do what we're doing. I wish they didn't have to, but it's the way things are right now. So we do have a salary with that has to be raised. And I will just say what I need to say here. If you want to go online, you can look up nicaraguachristian.org and you can kind of see some things online. If you are interested in giving, you can also do that there. But anyway, that's just for your information at this time. So, how many minutes do I got left? You turned it off. I must have all the time in the world. Do what? Oh, yes. Thank you. Outside in the foyer, you may have already seen it. We just have a little display of items if you'd like to pick up a brochure a recent brochure and take that with you. It also has this website along with some other information. We also should have our most recent newsletter from there. And if you'd like to pick that up and pick up some of that information, that would be great. So we need to say, if you need to go, you may go. If you have some question for us, something you would like to discuss, then we can do that now, right? So please feel free if you need to move on. That's okay with your time schedules and things like that. But if some of you have any questions, we can be here and try to answer those. So I don't know. Generally, anybody have anything you want to ask or comment or say right now? Yeah, I think they mostly are. Again, they're all very much believers, and some of them we've been working on. We've had two or three of them converted. Again, I guess our bank of available members of the church who are teachers and qualified is a little limited. So we have done some other things, but we emphasize every day, every day, every day. So again, it's not the optimum situation, I suppose, but they would all certainly be believers and moving toward, I think, a greater understanding of things. Yeah. Good question. Yes, sir. Well, we have that broken down on another slide somewhere, but the point is yes. I mean, right now we spent last year right at $500,000. That's for everything from month to month, salaries, upkeep, scholarships, um, fees that the government charges, and things like that. So we have about a $500,000. We right now, we have a lot of different individuals contributing over time, but one of the things that we know is we have to keep renewing that because some people decide to go do something else, and that's fine. So I think last year, I think we actually brought in, we had one major donation last year of $100,000. So that put us up to last year, I think the amount of money that came in was about 600,000. But of course, we're trying to balance that. And we're trying to also we have a, what's a fund called? Endowment funds. Thank you. The name went out there. We have an endowment fund that we're kind of setting aside for special projects in the future. But that's just a general view. I can get you more detail on what that is if you'd like. But that's kind of what we're looking at. And again, the budgets vary a little bit according to month from, and by the way, their process there, the school has to turn into the government every month the projected budget for the next month. The government has to approve it, and then we have to spend all that money in the month and on the things that we said. So it's a pretty controlled situation, which on some levels is good. Other times it can just be a headache, but it's a very good thing. So we're very much in control of that. We have all volunteers. We have a bookkeeper. We have an accountant. All volunteer their time to help us on the state side to take care of it, and then the school has a full-time accountant as well to help take care of those issues on site. Okay, good question. Other thoughts, comments? Yeah, it typically goes from about the 1st of February, maybe the end of January, just depends on when the Mondays fall, until the end of November. So that, I guess, would make it 10 months. Yeah. And then they have the months of December and January. The students do off. The teachers don't have quite that much, but they may end up with actually about 5 or 6 weeks where they're not working. College is a little harder, but typically within that ballpark. Some of them are a little more flexible and they're maybe finishing up after the first of the year or they didn't start quite on the same time. It just kind of depends on the universities for that. But it pretty much within that framework, yes. Good question. The question was just what the school year is. I guess you guys figured that out. Sorry. Other questions or thought, Paul? Had what in it? Construction like that is just pretty much standard procedure that you put bars on it. So in case somebody breaks in that, gets on the property that they can't just break into the rooms. I mean, it's a very impoverished area, but and we have night watchmen that are there all night, but there's not a lot of incidents. It's sort of like, it's just a mentality that there is, that it's much better to prevent than it is to resolve. So that's the reason that they're there. Yeah. Well, good question. Yes. Leon is actually, it's the second largest population center in Nicaragua. Of course, the largest being in Managua. And I believe that what I read recently, it's about 50 some odd thousand. I used to think it was 500,000, but preacher estimates, whatever. I kind of jumped the gun a little bit, but it's not quite 500, but it's about 50,000 there in the area. And we have several churches in the different areas, as you might imagine. The commuting between the areas isn't so easy, but we have different churches in the area. But it's about that. And by the way, we'll add this little bit for whatever it might be worth. Last year, the elementary school and the preschool and the elementary school were rated number one by the Ministry of Education, number one in terms of education in the whole area. And to beat the private Catholic schools is a major accomplishment. The high school rated second, okay? Again, we're not doing it necessarily to get one and two ratings, but that certainly comes fine, and we're all encouraged by that. But just trying to share to you the level of education that they're getting is very good. And again, in this rather impoverished situation, I think we can certainly be thankful for that. Good question. Other thoughts? Yes, Susan. Okay. Well, there is a public education system that is paid for, at least majorly, by the government, but there are always costs to families. But in this case, the families are so impoverished that they could not afford even to send them to public schools. So for us providing for that for them, the Nicaragua government should understand we're trying to do a good service here, trying to educate kids. And by the way, you could almost be said with the amount of surety that almost none of these kids would have been in school had the school not been there. That's just the truth of the matter. And they certainly would not have graduated from high school and certainly not been offered a chance to go to and do university studies. Now, is that the greatest thing? It isn't. What's the greatest thing is that they also get to hear about Jesus. All right, that's the greatest thing. But at the same time, you're going to do something and you're going to help them. This is a good thing to do. Okay? I know time's running out. I don't mean to keep you all any longer than you normally stay, but thank you for your kind attention. We're here. Go back and take a look at the table. Pick up some information, and thank you for letting us be here to share with you today. Appreciate it so much. It's also good to see John and Brittany back there. John, I think I had you in class, didn't I? Twice. Yeah, I was thinking that. John is trying to forget that fact. And Brittany just reminded me she was in a Spanish class. I actually taught Spanish for a couple of semesters when they were really scraping the bottom of the barrel. But we did that. So it's good to be with them. And John, thank you for the message today. Hard passage these days with our culture shouting at us other things. What you said is what God said. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's a great thing. I don't have anything else. David, you have anything else? All right, let's offer prayer to God, okay? Father, we are thankful to you for everything you're doing, not only in Nicaragua, Father, but right here in Evansville and in many other places in the world. And Father, we just want to be your servants to do what we can. We ask your help and your blessing to do that. Thank you, Father, for letting us learn about you and your love and knowing the gift of your son on the cross and the salvation there that's for us, the great grace that you've extended to us. And may we live today in happiness and joy for all of that. And may we share with others what we know. Help us, Father. Forgive us of our weaknesses and bless us today. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you again. Blessings.